Hi, David here, and welcome back to the channel, looking at life in spirit through the automatic writings of James Padgett. James was a medium in Washington, D.C., who worked during and for a short time after the First World War. In the first video in this series, 2.1, we looked at a message James received in December 1914 from his old law professor, Joseph Salyards, who sounded as though he was making good progress in spirit. Today we look at two messages which were given just a few weeks later. The first one is from an acquaintance of James who doesn't seem to be doing quite so well. This message was received on January 12, 1915, and is a good example of someone who has passed to the first sphere, or earth planes, in spirit, with little useful knowledge of what to expect. The message begins, "I am here, George Harvey. I lived in Washington and kept a restaurant on Pennsylvania Avenue and 10th Street. I am in the spirit world and in hell also. I am not happy, for I am in darkness and despair." This is clearly not a close friend of James, because George feels the need to remind him who this is, with a few more details from his earth life. Perhaps James ate in his restaurant now and again. I am in the spirit world and in hell also. People often talk about the spirit world, but of course this is just shorthand for somewhere in spirit, which encompasses a huge range of different environments. Within that, George says he is in hell, in what he calls darkness and despair. We're not told why he finds himself in this condition, but obviously some aspect of his recollections of earth life keep him there, combined with a lack of awareness as to what his options might be. In response, James Padgett seems to have asked whether George was at all religious or believed in God, whether he said his prayers, something along those lines, because George replies, "Yes, I did, but that did not keep me from hell. The priests misled me, and they are here too, damn them. Can you help me any? If you can, do so." Now, in video 2.2, we met an acquaintance by the name of Taggart, and we looked at James' attempt to help him. Taggart seems to be a mutual acquaintance of George Harvey and James, because James mentions him at this point, with George replying, "Yes, I remember Taggart, for he is here too, and can't help himself, for I see him sometimes, and he tells me that he is in a condition of suffering too. No, he is not in condition to help me, even if I do see him. You must help me if you can. I don't know who from, but I want help from someone." Taggart is one of a number of people who have had the knowledge of divine love and the progress it brings explained to them. This is something that James consistently did with people in spirit who came to him looking for help. So it's possible here that he has said something of this to George Harvey, who says, "I know they say so, but I don't believe them, for they can't help themselves." So Padgett asks George whether he has met any of his own spirit band who are helping him with the automatic writing, perhaps referring to his own father, John Padgett. George replies, "No, I don't know them. I will see him at once and ask him, and tell him that I want to know. So good night, your friend, George Harvey." George Harvey wrote to James again, and we'll look at his next message in a few weeks' time. Although he is in a position to carry on a normal conversation, he is clearly in a state of some distress and looking for direction. As I've said before, hell, or being in the first sphere, or earth planes of spirit, is fundamentally a place of loneliness, where people struggle to find others to be with. The worse they've been as human beings, the harder that struggle is. So we will come back to George Harvey, but in the meantime I want to look at a contrasting message from James Padgett's old law partner, Anthony G. Riddle, which was given just a few weeks after George Harvey was in touch with James. We have already heard briefly from Anthony Riddle back in video 114, so I'll put a link to that at the end of this video and in the description box. But this is a much more detailed message about Anthony's experiences in spirit, and which also tells us something interesting about healing. My own mediumship has a focus on healing, so I'm always interested in learning more about it from folks in spirit who are actually doing the hard work. This message from Anthony Riddle was delivered on February 20th, 1915, so a few months prior to the message in video 114. I am here, your old law partner. I am very happy tonight, and I am glad that you are so much better. You had a rather hard time of it, which reminded me somewhat of the suffering that I used to undergo when I was on earth. Well, you are cured of the indigestion, but the gas accumulates at times and makes it uncomfortable for you. But that will pass away before long, and your digestive organs will soon be in perfect working order. At this point, James seems to ask what enabled this healing. Anthony replies, the faith that you had in your prayers, and through the work of the Master, you were actually cured. The work done was a means used to impress upon you the fact that God had answered your prayers. I do not see how you could have had such faith as you evidenced at the time, but it is a fact that you had it, and as a consequence, the cure was effected. Jesus helped you to pray and also helped your faith. He also did the work that you observed through the power that he possesses, and used White Eagle to manipulate your intestines and liver. It was a revelation to me, I must confess, and caused me to believe more than ever in prayer and faith. So there's a few things going on here. White Eagle is a member of Padgett's spirit band, who rather works in the background. There aren't many messages from him, or that mention him, but he seems to have a focus on healing. The people in spirit who want to work with James, or who want him to work with them, are trying to give him various signs, forms of proof, if you like, that they are real, that they are who they say they are, and that what they say can be relied upon. So when James asks for help with digestive and intestinal problems, they have taken the opportunity to help. No doubt they would have done anyway, but this does offer another opportunity for them to evidence their presence and closeness to James, as well as showing more of what can be done through working with people in spirit. Spiritual healing often used to be called faith healing, but I've noticed that during my lifetime it has become fashionable to claim that faith isn't needed. Personally, I think this is a mistake, and probably just a response by mediums and the spiritualist movement to a world that has become a bit suspicious of faith. It is fair to say that healing is on offer from God through people in spirit and healing mediums in this world, regardless of whether someone who needs it trusts in the truth or reality of this. But in order for there to be a healing, there does need to be a rapport or connection with the person to be healed. It is a form of mediumship, after all. That can happen with someone who has faith or trusts that healing is real. And the greater the degree of trust or faith, the more fully the door is open to being healed. Someone who does not trust in the reality of spirit or of personal healing keeps that door closed, because this is an expression of their free will, which even God does not interfere with, because free will is itself a God-given attribute. This is also why there is no ethical issue with sending healing to someone without asking them first. In sending someone healing, a healer can only offer. If a person is not open to being healed, whether at a conscious or unconscious level, any healing sent to them will simply pass them by or bounce off them. No healer can make someone be healed. This is why a healer can never predict what will happen when offering healing. As a healer, you can know absolutely that healing is on offer, but you can never fully know the extent of someone's faith or trust when offering them healing. As a healer, you know that anything is possible, but you also know that sometimes nothing is possible. So that's my slightly long-winded way of saying why I'm happy for spiritual healing to be called faith healing, because although the faith or trust of the person being offered healing is not the origin or source of the healing, it does determine whether or not a connection can be made. Anyway, to get back to Mr. Riddle and his experiences in spirit, he tells James that I am now so very happy in my new sphere, and cannot explain to you what this happiness means, for I cannot express myself in language sufficiently strong and descriptive, so that you may comprehend my meaning. However, this I will say, that my happiness now transcends all conception of what I thought happiness might be, when, as a mortal, I sometimes thought of the afterlife, and the happiness which might be in store for me when I passed over. I am in the third sphere, and I am not contented to remain there, for your mother has told me on many occasions of the far greater happiness existing in the higher spheres. I am now striving and praying for this greater happiness, and I will never be contented until I get it. Your wife is in a much higher sphere, and is so very beautiful and so exceedingly happy, that I know that where she lives, such happiness must exist. I am also happy because I have my soulmate with me so very often, and her love is so great and pure that it leads me on to higher things, and enables me to seek with so much earnestness the great love of God, which I now believe is working for me, if I will only strive to obtain it. It seems that Anthony's soulmate is more spiritually advanced than he is, and that this is a factor in drawing him on, so that they can be together constantly, rather than often. James seems to have asked a question at this point. We're still in the early days of his automatic writings, with him trying to get his head round everything he's being told. Anthony Riddle says, "Well, as you want me to tell you of the laws of the spirit world, I will say that the one great law is that God is love, and that he is willing to bestow that love on anyone, spirit or mortal, who asks him for it. I am not only very happy, but I find that my mind is expanding to a great extent by reason of the love that I possess. No mortal or spirit can possibly be filled with this love and not have the wisdom that comes with it." This is interesting. Up to this point, we've been told that divine love is something different from human or natural love, that it is gained by asking for it, by developing a relationship with God, what we might call faith or trust and prayer, that those who share in it become more spiritually advanced, and that a very real benefit is the happiness this brings. Here, however, Anthony Riddle is telling us that for him it has also brought with it an increase in his awareness. He now enjoys a wisdom that divine love has given him. We'll see many messages in the months ahead as to the difference divine love makes to the human soul, but here Anthony tells us that it has made a difference to his awareness. He's not claiming any kind of omniscience, or even any increase in his intellectual knowledge or learning, but he is indicating an increased spiritual awareness or ability to perceive spiritual truths. It does seem clear that he is finding human language inadequate for conveying exactly the experience he has had. He goes on to say, "I am not yet fully conversant with the laws of communication, but I know enough to be able to say that every spirit is trying to communicate with their friends on earth. And why they are not able is because the mortals are not in that condition of psychical rapport that will enable them to receive the communications of the spirits. I do not know as of yet why one mortal is susceptible to these influences in such a way as to be readily understood, and another mortal is not. Although this I do know, that when the rapport exists, the communications become stronger with the exercise of their powers. You," meaning Padgett, "have this power to a very large degree, and if you will continue to try to exercise it, you will find that manifestations of several kinds will be disclosed. Your writing powers are very great, and will grow as you continue to write. And beside this phase, you have the potential ability to have other manifestations, such as independent voice and slate writing. This latter, I think, will soon come to you, and when it does, you will get messages that will have great value to you in convincing you that what you write in this method is written by the control of the thoughts of your friends in the spirit world. You will also get the voices very soon, I think, and when you do, you will be able to converse with us in your room at night, when you are alone. But I don't know of any manifestation so satisfactory to both spirit and mortal as the writing such as you are now doing, for we have the opportunity for such a greater extent of communicating and interchanges of thought. I am perfectly delighted at the possibility given me of writing you in this way, so you must believe that I am writing to you, and that all the others of your band are doing the same thing." So whether it's learning a particular form of mediumship or sharing in divine love, Anthony tells James that everything is a process. There may be particular moments when something is experienced, shown, or revealed, but like the moment when you enjoy the view from the mountaintop, it comes as a result of the long climb. The more James carries on the automatic writing, the better he will become at it, and the more will be added to the forms of mediumship he can do. Anthony Riddle makes particular reference to independent voice and slate writing. Now, I sit weekly to develop my mediumship, and one of the things that can manifest is someone in spirit speaking through me, using my body directly, so as to have a conversation with someone in this world. This can be referred to as direct voice, but what Anthony Riddle has mentioned, independent voice, is where the medium is used to connect with this world, but the spirit communicator vocalizes independently of the medium's body, so that the sound is heard somewhere else in the room. This is what the trumpets are used for in physical sittings with spirit. There's nothing special about the trumpets themselves. They're just there to amplify the sound the spirit communicator is making, so that people in the room can hear it, like using a megaphone. Slate writing goes back to the days when people used chalk and slate to write things down. For anything that isn't permanent, it was better than wasting paper. So they were often used in schoolrooms for practicing your letters when learning to write. Remember, this message from Anthony Riddle was delivered in 1915, so this would be perfectly familiar. The use of chalk and slate in mediumship was to allow spirit communicators to manifest by manipulating the chalk without the medium touching it, so as to write something on the slate. Obviously, anyone who has seen anything like this is likely to regard it as a very evidential form of mediumship. So James Padgett's people in spirit are still thinking in terms of things they can do to strengthen his trust in their presence, their identities, and the things they tell him by showing him a variety of phenomena. Yet, from their point of view, the automatic writing is the thing they find most satisfactory. Anthony concludes his message by saying to James, "Your father is with me a great deal, and he has helped me very much, and he is now progressing so rapidly that he will soon be with his soulmate in the fifth sphere. Your good mother tells me this, and she knows so many things pertaining to spiritual progress. I must stop now, for you are tired, and so am I. So with all my love and blessing, I am your old partner, A.G. Riddle." So another fascinating glimpse from the other side, not only into life in spirit, but also into how the two sides of life can interact with each other. We have something like 2,500 messages delivered through James Padgett. It feels even more when you try and read them all. But even in looking at just one or two, there is so much in them that can be brought out. In video 2.1, Padgett's old law professor, Joseph Salyards, mentioned divine love as key to his development. In the second message we've looked at in this video, his old law partner, Anthony Riddle, says the same thing. Understanding what divine love is what we focus on in the Sunday videos, starting with 10.1, so do check those out. The video to be uploaded this coming Sunday will be 10.3 and examines natural human love, so as to get a better idea on how divine love is different. In the next video in this series, looking at messages from people Padgett knew, which will be video 2.4, I'll be taking you through another message from Joseph Salyards delivered in February 1915. It is quite a long message, but it's very good in describing what it's often like for the recently departed, or from the point of view of people in spirit, the newly arrived. So I hope you'll join me for those. In the meantime, if you've enjoyed this video, as I hope you have, please take a moment to like and subscribe. I've mentioned in this video that healing forms part of my own work as a medium, so if you or anyone you know of would benefit from healing, feel free to use the comments section to let me know, and I'll be happy to add you to my healing list. A name and general location, city or state, is ample. Don't disclose any information beyond that. A general location just helps me visualise, but if you prefer not to disclose that, please don't. What is helpful is to ask whoever you are close to in spirit to have a word with my healing colleagues in spirit, so they can make the connection that bit more swiftly. Otherwise, we end up expecting people in spirit to do a bit of detective work to get to the right person. A personal introduction is easier and more efficient. In the meantime, as ever, thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon. Take care until then.